Do you have people living as engaged citizens in your senior living community? Learn why you should from someone living it every day next. Welcome to Aging Unscripted, a podcast about everything relating to aging. Here we will explore a wide range of topics aimed at celebrating, supporting, exploring, and honoring the aging journey. I'm Jill Vitale-Aussem, and I am privileged to serve as the president and CEO of Christian Living Communities, a nonprofit senior living and services organization based in Denver, Colorado. Joining me today is my friend Verna Cavey. Verna is a retired educator, an elder advocate, and current resident of our Clermont Park campus in Southeast Denver. That's our original Christian Living Communities campus. Verna's graduate work was at Johns Hopkins University and the Maxwell School of Syracuse University. Her involvement in the aging field includes teaching, research, programming, and serving on elder and anti-ageism committees. And she has presented around the world. Welcome, Verna. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, Jill. Thank you for the invitation.
And today, Verna and I are going to dig into the Christian Living Communities citizenship model of community living. And before we do that, I wanted to give a little bit of background and context about really how we got to this place and how I as a leader got to this place. I started as a nursing home administrator back in the 1990s, and I had come out of a graduate program from a hotel school, and I approached my job in senior living through that lens for so many years. I thought customer service was the answer, and that senior living communities should be like big resorts or cruise ships. And then if we were doing for people, that was the epitome of success. And that's really the way that our field has viewed this work for a lot of years. And it's how I was thinking about things when I started as the executive director of our Clermont Park campus 15 years ago. And, along the way, the folks that lived and worked at Clermont Park and I really started learning more about ageism. We started learning about what are the things we need to live a long and healthy life. And I remember having this huge realization, like, holy moly, we're on the wrong path here. Because this whole model of when we get older, the best we can aspire to is to be a passive consumer of services is really rooted in ageism. And it's that belief that when we get older, we have nothing left to give back to society, and we just become a drain on society. And, actually, there is no research out there that shows that sitting back, and Verna will talk to you about this, sitting back and putting your feet up lives a long and healthy life. And in fact, the opposite is true. The research shows that we need meaningful purpose in our lives. We need to continue growing and learning. We need to have true belonging, and we need to be in an age-positive environment. So what we really started doing at Clermont Park was learning how to be community builders, rather than thinking of ourselves as hotel or resort managers. And we moved from thinking about the people that lived at Clermont Park as customers and started to think of all of us as citizens in a community. We stopped, just framing people as who they were in the past. And we started asking some really interesting questions that at first were a little bit like, and then over time really started to transform the culture. So we started asking, what gifts and passions do you want to bring to this community to make it a stronger and better place? What do you want to learn next? And how will we all work together and make this a stronger and better community? And what has happened has really been pretty outstanding. And each of our communities that we have throughout the state, they're all at different places in this journey. And the citizenship model looks different everywhere, as it should. Verna is here today. As you met Verna a little bit earlier, she's lived at Clermont Park since May of 2014, and she's been educating people around the country and around the world about the citizenship model and how it has impacted her life and the lives of others. So are you ready to get into this, Verna?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay, so Verna, would you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how did you come to live at Clermont Park, and what impact has that really made on your life?
Sure, Jill. It's been almost 15 years when I first retired. And I didn't begin at Clermont. I began at a I'm not even sure I would use the word community. It was more institutional.
Are you going to use the F word? Facility?
Facility. And more role-bound, hierarchy. Board wasn't really interested in the voices of residents and so on. And that worked for me for a while. It was the norm. I didn't see any alternatives out there. We were told where to sit for dinner, who to sit with, and so on and so forth. And eventually I began to decline, and my doctor actually took me out of there.
Wow.
So, and that's when things changed.
That's when things changed, and that's when you came to Clermont Park.
Right. Wise people said to me, you need to go to Clermont Park. Something very different is happening there. And I did, and my life did radically change. What
was different, Verna? What were the main differences that you found?
Well, immediately I was listened to. They wanted to know my skills and what contributions I could make to community. It was resident directed, which was mind-blowing. I mean, residents were interacting and collaborating with team members and leadership. They would state needs, and they would all work together to meet those needs. And so I was teaching, I was doing programming, and then I began the conference work. And it started with Colorado, and then it went around the country, and then I ended up doing things abroad. So it's a radical change in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned person-directed care, and we also hear the term person-centered sometimes,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
what do you see as a difference between those?
Well, I think person-centered is the foundation on which everything else builds. Without
That each person's an individual.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if that's not happening, nothing else is going to happen.
Right.
So I immediately knew the person-centered as soon as I walked in there. I would say it was in the initial stages of refining of the resident directed at that point. And so I was lucky. I got in on the early stages of that and saw it develop, and saw one of the things that we did, for example, was we established the Imagination Lab.
Oh, talk about that.
Yeah. And that was fun. That basically said, what do we need as individuals here? And how do we meet those needs? How do we problem solve? And it was just wonderful because residents could wander in, team members could wander in, and we could just work together and create these solutions. And we continue with the Imagination Lab today. And then you brought up the idea of citizenship. And so that broadens everything. Now it's not just about me as an individual. I'm thinking about my community and all my neighbors in that community, and what do we need as a community. So it's been a wonderful journey. It really has.
That is so incredibly powerful. Well, you were talking recently about how you've changed or evolved the way you're thinking about how we support elders living with dementia and neighbors. And it kind of goes along with what you just said is sometimes even in a person-directed environment, when you don't go as far as citizenship, you're only thinking, what's in it for me?
Exactly.
But you just kind of have had a shift in your thinking about that. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I deal with a number of topics as a volunteer in the aging field, and I didn't individually see dementia as something I knew a lot about, or even that I wanted to learn about. I wasn't especially interested, and everybody was really excited about it and the progress being made and so on. And then I realized every morning I was seeing one of my neighbors, and she was from the memory care neighborhood. And I would say, "Good morning, how are you?" And I'd get this just terrible, painful look on her face. And I thought, "Oh my gosh, how do I do this? What do I say? I don't know anything." And then finally one day, simultaneously, I just said, "Good morning. I'm so glad to see you." And this huge beam on her face. And I thought, wow, I did.
Yeah,
I found the right thing. And then that moment, this wasn't a topic. This was two human beings, neighbors, connecting to each other and feeling that moment of joy. And I thought, whoa, this is community. This is citizenship.
Yeah.
This is different. And it's at that point where I got involved, and now we're going to be training our independent living residents to better communicate and interact with folks in memory care.
That is awesome. And, I think sometimes, I don't know if this rings true to you, there's a lot of stigma that can happen with people with a dementia diagnosis and fear, right? When you don't know, how do I interact with somebody? How do I support someone? It kind of leads people to almost turn away, and it's that definition of ageism too, as prejudice against our feared future self, right? There's a lot of that. So thank you for looking out, not just for yourself, but what do our neighbors need, right? And I think making sure we have that inclusion of everyone in communities, including people who are living with frailty, including people who are living with dementia, that makes our community stronger and better.
It does, and it feels really good.
It feels really good, doesn't it?
Great.
It's pretty amazing. How do you see this citizenship model? How do you see that would and is advancing our vision of creating communities where aging is honored and celebrated?
Oh, let me think about that for a minute.
Do you feel like it creates an age positive, empowering environment?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things, we use the vocabulary of purpose and meaning, engagement and belonging and all of that. And I hope my contribution is to bring more of a human, more than vocabulary, but to say I'm someone, an older person, living in community, and it's real. Purpose is real to me, and contribution is real to me, and I'm healthy and happy because of it.
Yeah.
And you are not declining. That's got to go away. This stereotypical negative definition of aging.
Yes.
And so if I can lend my voice to this, then more power to it.
Well, you are doing such amazing work, Verna. Thank you. What are you most excited about at Clermont Park? What's happening right now that you're like, ooh, this is me?
Whoa. We're looking at another year, and what's happening next? For me, actually, you were involved in it as well. Residents have gotten together based on an idea of yours.
I think it was your idea.
Oh, we keep going back and forth.
Yes, we did.
Anyway, there was an idea, and the residents sat down and worked on it, and it became the Resident Scholarship Fund. So now with Citizenship, we're very much concerned about bringing the world in and our going out into the world. And so what happens is people, whatever their passion is, whether it be music or art, weaving, whatever. In my case, I go to conferences.
Yeah.
So what happens is they go out into the community, study, and then bring that knowledge of the outside world back into the rest of us.
I love that.
And it's a great concept. I really like it. Personally, I'm getting I'm just a student at this stage, but I'm getting very interested in geropsychiatry, gerotherapist, and how that can inform some of our programming because we people belong at Clermont, and so our executive director Don says he calls it a healing community.
Well, I love that.
I know.
That's amazing.
And if we can advance that, even further, I think it would make for some really great programming.
I love that. I love that. And with a lot of times there'll be staff scholarships, right? But having resident scholarships, and it really recognizes that we've got amazing potential and wisdom and knowledge.
Yes.
And the folks that live in our communities, if we're all really going to work together to make our organization stronger and better, then that means there's opportunities, right, to invest in that work too. And
everybody deserves this.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves this.
They do. They do. Absolutely. Yep. So everybody who's out there listening to this or watching this, all of us are aging at this very moment in time, right?
Yes.
And we're all elders or aspiring elders. And what words of advice do you have for everybody about aging?
Don't buy into the negative stereotypes that say that if you're aging, then you're declining. No way. Psychologists tell us, their research tells us from our own self-reporting that from 65 on, it's the happiest time.
Isn't that something?
And that's totally against the stereotypes that tell us, oh no, this is a really sad time in life. So no, I'm trying to say there is that meaning, that richness, that inner life.
Yeah.
There's so much, so many wonderful surprises like podcast.
Who knew?
Exactly. And just incredible enrichment. So go for it.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful time of life.
Thank you. That is such great advice. Thank you, Verna. And Verna, I know you had a couple things, and you had some tough questions for me. So
yeah, this is something I have been curious about for a long time, and I never asked you.
Okay.
So
oh boy, I'm ready for this.
Okay. So I came to Clermont and I received a lot of support and empowerment. But you were at Clermont doing some pretty revolutionary things. And I often wondered, I didn't hear anybody saying, stop, Jill, you're a troublemaker. And I wondered, who are the people in your life that may have, I know you have inner strengths, but I'm wondering, there had to be some leadership that helped you in some way. I'd be really curious to know about that.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really great question. When I came to work at Christian Living Communities, so the organization has always been innovative.
Right.
And I had been, when I was called about the role there at the time, I was at a place in my career, I had started doing work with the Eden Alternative, and we can put the link in the show notes. The Eden Alternative is really the foundation of where this all came from. And I decided I wasn't going to go work anywhere unless it was a place that would embrace that kind of, like we've got to do better kind of mentality, and how are we going to do this, and let's move this forward. But the CEO at the time, Russ, and the COO at the time, Camille, when I came to work for Christian Living Communities, they knew what they were getting. But at this because they knew, and that's why they brought me in, because they had a vision for something different. So I'm sure there were times where they were like, what did we get ourselves into? But they really supported this work because it really is in alignment with our mission and our vision. And the other thing that I really focused on is keeping them in the loop as we went forward. Like, I didn't just go and bulldoze my way through. I know maybe it looked like that sometimes, but and this is something, I think about a lot, is if we don't bring people along with us, and that means the people that live and work in our communities, as well as the people that we report to, right now I report to a board. If you don't bring people along, then you can start to have more roadblocks than you really need to have. So I was really fortunate to have leadership that trusted me, even when some of the stuff we were doing might have seemed a little bit out there. And they also saw the results of it, because they saw, we were opening we were under construction right at the time I started. We were opening a whole new neighborhood, a building of life plan apartment homes, and we filled that up way ahead of projections because people wanted to be part of this culture. And so there was the trust along the way, and then they started to see, oh my goodness, this is really something. But I owe so much to both of them for believing in my abilities and, trusting, even when maybe things seemed a little different than we were used to.
Q, I have my answer.
Yes, thanks for that question. Thank you, Verna. I could talk with you for hours, but alas, our time has come to an end today. I learned so much from you. Thank you. And I'm sure everyone else listening and watching has learned so much also. For everyone out there, we've got a lot of resources available to you to help you with your journey away from the institutional model to a different way of supporting older adults and creating real communities. So we have a list of resources available in the podcast notes for you. Thank you for joining us for Aging Unscripted. A reminder that aging is indeed unscripted. There aren't rules, and each of us has a journey that's as an individual as we are. Aging is a gift that not everyone gets, and it's a sacred phase of life that should be honored and celebrated. Thank you.